I'm at Portland, overlooking Weymouth Bay, broadcasting about a contemporary topic about migration. Because down on the waterfront, you'll see the famous barge that's been in the news, that's designed to accept 500 migrants. And I've got views on immigration and questions on immigration that might interest the audience. I personally think the country is full up, because when I was at school the population was 54 million. Now we're at least 66 million. But politicians since the year 2000 have encouraged migration, because all they kept saying on Radio 4 programs was migration's good for the economy, it's cheap labour. So a company grows because it makes more profit from cheap labour, and then it can afford to expand. So it's building, putting more concrete on grass, bringing in more people, pressurising the housing stock, schools, dentists, doctors. So that's for company growth. And I think there's a time in a country where development should be at its maximum and say we don't need to develop any further. And for too long we've had immigrants coming in from the likes of Albania. Now I've been to Albania, it's a perfectly safe country, but when I left Albania going to Italy, I was the only person on board who wasn't Albanian. They were all trying to leave, and they've come to this country because I'm told wages 9 times what they are in Albania, although Albania is a safe and it's a holiday destination. But our countries let them in for too long that news gets passed back to these home countries. Oh, England's a doddle. If you make it across the channel and you've got a 99% chance of making it, you'll be well received. So we've got big pull factors here. And they're arriving in to stay in 3 stars hotel, which in Calais was compared as luxury compared to the jungle. And those people in 3-star hotels who initially refused to be moved onto the barge, some people might say, what a cheek. And they'll receive pocket money when they arrive here. So the pull factors are enormous, plus the benefit system if they're going to stay. Now there are some people who put obstacles in the way of what the government's trying to do by saying the barge is inhumane. Well, they've got no idea what they're talking about, because I have been to the Sahel, to some of these countries where these people come from. I've been to Senegal, Mauritania, Mali, Sudan, Eritrea, Djibouti, Egypt. And I am convinced that anywhere people are accommodated in this country is far better to the living conditions which they've experienced. And then these compassionate folks will say, oh, these people are traumatized from the sea. They don't want to be put on a barge. But this barge down on the water behind me is completely sheltered. There's not one ripple there. Nothing would ever rock the boat. It's in a protected quay. And these people who say it's inhumane, there are folks in this country who are suffering from the cost of living crisis, can't pay their bills. They'd love to live on the barge. They would have free heating, showers, television, Wi-Fi, and they would be living comfortably compared to suffering the cost of living. And it's also not natural to have all these migrants being young males, because they're not representing the whole demographics of the poor people in those countries. And a lot of them are here because they want to earn more money. And they'll have some lawyers cooking up false stories, which we've heard on the news, which is corruption. And Britain has slid down the perception index of world corruption. We've dropped places because of our dishonesty. Now these migrants can afford thousands of pounds to make this journey, so that means they're leaving the poorest people behind who need the most help. Now we've got an agreement with Albania, but I don't know what it is. But that came rather late. And a lot of these migrants are asylum shopping. They're picking the country where they're going to have the greatest chance of being accepted and having the best lifestyle, which increases these pull factors. I've always thought, why can't these migrants be sent to countries like Paraguay, It's got 1/10 of the population, 10 times the size of Britain. That means 100 times more space. And there's a lot of Latin, or I should say Italian, German descendants living in that part of South America. And Saudi Arabia takes virtually nobody because they have not signed to the refugee accords. So therefore, Afghans and Syrians would find this more akin to their culture by going south into Saudi Arabia than coming into Britain. And I think that these international agreements should be modernized, because then when they were made, the world wasn't witnessing this record of numbers of people moving across the globe in search of a better life. Now, aid that we give to these countries is designed to make their lives better and for them not to want to come and visit Europe and live here. So aid needs to be looked at, how it's structured and spent, and rich governments need to work more closely with foreign governments to try to encourage better governance. So in the meanwhile, the project that the government had for the plane to take off to Rwanda, that didn't take off, and the barge project, due to Legionnaire disease, has been temporarily sunk. So both projects need salvaging before we can find a way forward. And we're just going to zoom in on the barge. There it is. Nicely protected, out of the way. You can't get in there, you get told off at the gate if you pass the outer gate. And when you get to the control, they'll send you straight back, so you can't go in there. This is the closest you can get to the barge.